Welcome to a new episode of the Cartridge Club, where we discuss our game of the month with members of the Cartridge Club community. For the month of December, the Cartridge Club played Starfox Adventures. Joining me on the show, we have Adam, AtomicBomb1980, StumptownRetro, and JChipShow. If you've played along, you can always share your own experiences in the forums at cartridgeclub.org, in our community's Discord, or across social media by using the hashtag Cartridge Club. Before I start the show, on behalf of the entire Cartridge Club community, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon Club backers like Joel Boyce, Buried on Mars, Christopher Rohr, Dean Lasagna, Ross Rango, and Caleb J. Ross. To our backers and Patreon supporters, thank you. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter for the Cartridge Club, please look into how you can do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club.
This is my first time playing Starfox Adventures. I didn't have a GameCube growing up, so I kind of missed these Star Fox games in general. But I've always loved Star Fox, played a ton of Star Fox 64. Definitely played a lot of it when it re-released on the 3DS. Played Star Fox and Star Fox 2. I remember signing that ROM for Star Fox 2 back in the day and really going ham on it back out when I could. But this game was the first time I've, played something very much outside the realm of what I identify as Star Fox. So going in, I had an expectation of like, oh, it's a Star Fox game. I know it's supposed to be more of a on-ground adventure, almost like a Zelda-like, but it should still have Star Fox elements in it, right? Right? And it kind of does. It kind of like teases you every once in a while with what you actually want when you're going into a different level or a place. And I'm like, yeah, this was great. And it lasted 40 seconds. I was so happy. But that doesn't mean that the game is bad. It just means that it's not a Star Fox game. It just doesn't feel like a Star Fox game. So if you come into this with a different expectation, I feel that you could really enjoy it. I know that this game started off in the development hell as a different game entirely, and it 100% shows that through its entire DNA. This feels more like other games of its era, like Jak and Daxter, than it does like even a Zelda-like. It definitely doesn't feel like a lot of other things that Rare had produced before, like their collectathons, because there's not as many collectibles in this. There's just a lot of reusable items that you can pick up over and over again. So for me, overall, I think it's a decent game. I don't think it's a good game. I definitely think it's a product of its time. Controls are wonky, to say the least. Like moving your camera around with just like hitting Z constantly over and over and over again is definitely a product of the early 2000s game design, because we were only in the second generation of 3D and we were still figuring out dual analog controls. And Nintendo, with its little stupid C-stick, definitely didn't understand what an analog control was in the first place. It's my one gripe about the GameCube controller. Aside that, it's perfect. And it definitely shows why I have issues with that design in this particular type of game. But I did finish the game. It took a little bit of effort on my part, because about halfway through, I was getting really burnt on the same mechanics over and over and over again, as opposed to feeling like there was like new things added in with each individual section you went into. But overall, again, like I said, it's a product of the game of the time. If you go to the first Jak and Daxter game on the PS2, it's got a similar sort of issue. If you go to the first Ratchet and Clank game, it's got a similar sort of issue. And they both kind of feel similar in the collection aspect and like needing a certain item to move forward and everything like that. So I feel it's a lot like its contemporaries at the time, but those contemporaries also haven't aged that well comparatively, except for Ratchet and Clank, because that game is phenomenal.
All right. Well, I don't want to repeat everything he said, because I 100% agree with everything that he said. The only difference is I have not finished the game completely yet. I do plan on finishing it. I agree. It doesn't quite feel... It feels a little bit more like the Jak and Daxter games. My history with the Star Fox is I was never big into spaceship games when I was a kid, where you control a ship and just shoot stuff. I was never big into that. So when I saw that Star Fox Adventures comes out and it was labeled as a Zelda-like, Zelda is one of my favorite franchises. I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. I want to give this game a try. I bought it, sat it on my shelf, and I have never touched it until now. It's been on that shelf for what year did it come out? It's been a very long time.
2002. So over 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's been sitting on my shelf for over 20 years and I've never played it until now. And this is my first time playing it. So going into it now, after playing like other games from Rare, like Banjo-Kazooie, and playing Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, and Ratchet and Clank, and then going into this now after playing so many different games beyond this, it's still, I still think the game still holds up relatively well. Do I think if they remade it, they could improve it, taking what has gone as far as gameplay beyond this? Yes, this could be easily remade, and they could fill in some of the plot holes because, as Stump's saying, this was started off as a completely different game altogether, and it does show that throughout the story. You can tell there's moments where you're supposed to be two different people, but then they're forcing Fox to do both parts. That kind of feel that in there too. And I think they could refine the combat. The combat's just tap, tap, it's very repetitive to get through that. But graphically, I still think the game looks pretty damn good graphically to this day now. And I'm playing it off my original GameCube with just the only upscale I have is the HDMI adapter. I'm not even emulating it. I'm playing the actual game off of it and playing it. I've streamed it already. And it looks phenomenal. But I was excited to play it. I have since then. I do like playing Star Fox games and spaceship games in small doses. I loved Starlink. I loved that he was added into Starlink. I bought the Switch version specifically to play that part of it. So now I'm trying to go back. I want to try like Star Fox Assault. I don't have a copy of it. I need to go find it. And I do want to play Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. I want to try that now too. So it's gotten me interested to expand on the lore of Star Fox that I'm not quite sure on.
So it would be pretty much me repeating what the previous two gentlemen have said. So I'll just go over my history with Star Fox. I played Star Fox 64 way back when I was a kid. That was pretty much the only game I played for a good while because I could actually beat that game as a kid. And I don't know, I just found it really cool that you're in the ship and you're shooting things in sight. And I don't know, I really love Star Wars, so it kind of gave me that feel, especially with the R-Wings and stuff like that. And it just had a really interesting world. I've never played Star Fox Adventures until it was nominated for Game of the Month. And I'll say that the game I think is pretty solid, but it just putting Star Fox in there just feels kind of forced. He just doesn't look like he fits in this game at all. So like if you got rid of him and the other Star Fox characters, I think this could have been something else better, maybe. Like definitely more favored, but Star Fox is in it, so we gotta deal with what we got. I will say that and I don't want to spoil it for Adam, but the ending of this game was very anticlimactic, and I won't spoil it, but I hated the way this game ends.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, gameplay wise, it's probably the best design part of the game, but yeah, I wasn't a fan of how that ended either.
Yeah, and I really like the Star Fox missions way more than I did the regular gameplay, because you're kind of doing a lot of the same things, just trying to go to a different planet and get stuff so you can get a thing and protect this girl that I guess is important. Yeah.
Adam, then don't look at the overview we have here because it has the spoiler in it.
It's okay. It's fine. And even if I get spoiled, I'm still going to play through this. I want to. I'm enjoying the experience that I'm having with this game, and I look forward to it. And I know that a lot of people are just like they wanted more from this game, and you can tell it was there's a huge fan base behind Dino Planet that they want them to actually go back and do that game. because you can tell the big difference. I've seen some gameplay and some like leaked demo of it, and some of the like the voice acting and stuff does look different, but it does seem like it fits more to this game. But the fact that I also feel that it felt like they were kind of rushed to finish this game off. It sat in development hell. They wanted to just slap in Star Fox, to get it to sell and move on. Where I think if giving a little bit more tender love and care, adding more to this game and giving Rare more time, I think this game could have been even better than what it was. It's not that it's a bad game. It's still a fun game. It's still a nice experience. And it makes us want potentially a Starfox Adventures 2. Let them expand on this. Do something like this. Factor in where you can fly spaceships still, keep the old gameplay, plus add the ability to get out of your cockpit and run around and do stuff as well.
Well, you just described Star Fox Assault, which is Star Fox Adventure 2. It has Crystal in it. You have way more space missions, and you do have on-foot missions as well. That's exactly what you're saying you're looking for. It already exists.
All right, my overall thoughts and the history. I'll go over a little bit of my history with the franchise here. I also remember the original Star Fox coming out on the Super Nintendo and playing it at a kiosk at like a Target. So I remember my history goes back that far. I remember that next level when Star Fox 64 came out, and that was like a big deal. I know the game was short, but the replayability of Star Fox 64 is still great to this day because all the branching paths you can go and all the memorable lines and like the characters and the villains like Star Wolf and Pigma and of course Andros. But I was a huge fan of Star Fox 64. It's one of those games I always still come back to playing all the time. But for some reason, maybe because I was branching more towards the PS2, I never really dabbled with this one, despite having a GameCube before having any of the other consoles too. For some reason, this game and Star Fox Assault just like blew past me, and I just maybe don't remember them coming out. But I always remember like hearing about this game when I picked it up many years ago, that this was a Zelda clone. So I always had interest in playing this game, mostly because there was always like mixed reviews for this game too. I remember I think the reviews always said it was kind of like a 7 out of 10, and or people really like it. Like I'm seeing maybe because I got stuck a couple times in this game, so I had to look up where I had to go. And because of that, my YouTube algorithm will generate like, oh, Star Fox Assault short videos. And there's all these people like most recently coming out and saying, oh, this is a phenomenal game. It's a phenomenal game. I don't think it's a phenomenal game. I think the original reviews of 7 out of 10 is probably right for this game, because there's a lot of good, and then there's a lot of mid, or I want to say there's nothing really bad, but I'll say this. There's a point, I think, like after starting this game where I'm like, I don't know if this game's got it. I don't know if it's got it. It gets better, and that kind of got me drawn into it, but it's a fine game. It's I get it. I think it's worthy of a play, and that's the best way I can describe it. It's worthy of a play. I didn't hate this game, but there's definitely some elements I kind of I don't know. It didn't. I wanted to love this game, and it's one of those games where I think it could have been a great starting point, where I kind of want more Star Fox games kind of like this, but like you said, Salt is like that, where you need the flying missions and the going on the ground missions, where it'll pad out a Star Fox game. And I think the Zelda format does work well for this, for the Zelda game. I kind of like the Z targeting, but it was not as good as like Zelda Z targeting, right? Like, because you're just looking in a general area, and I'm like, I don't want to target this guy. I want to target this guy, and there's no real indicator over. I'm going into gameplay here. I'm saying is I think a game 5 years prior did it better, and I kind of wonder if some of it is Nintendo's tinkering with what Rare wanted to do, because at times this doesn't feel like a Rare game, like for a Rare title. And and by that I wonder how much Nintendo was involved with tinkering with it, how much they knew they were done, and I think they already were signed to Microsoft. Like, this is their last contracted game for Nintendo, and they were already leaving. So it's kind of like you hear, I think, like of bands with their record label when they want to get out of the record label and go on to the next thing. Like, how much of it was them just like, you know what, we're kind of just checked out. We're kind of just let's this over with so we can go on to the next thing. Because it doesn't quite feel like a Rare game, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah, I'm right on board with you. So, like, I know that Microsoft ended up purchasing them the same year that this came out. And I feel like Nintendo's tinkering, because they're never going to say anything in front of the camera or to an interviewer, because Nintendo, they're very secretive about this crap. It feels like this game started off as Dinosaur Planet, and they didn't want to get indebted to a franchise that developer could no longer make for them. And so they put Star Fox into it, so that way it can remain with their franchise, and then they can tinker with it as needed to be, or pass it on to a different developer without it really affecting them too much. That's kind of how it ends up feeling for me, because this game was in development since the N64. Like, that's the original Dinosaur Planet demo, was an N64 game. It's something that I can tell that Rare wanted to do on their own, but then everything happened with Microsoft, and this ended up being their last release for Nintendo. And rumor is that Miyamoto told them to put Star Fox in it, but how true that is, or how much that's just them covering up the fact that they knew that they didn't want to have a whole new series of characters that they had to make merchandise and, you know, follow up on. Like, they didn't want to make a Dinosaur Planet 2 and then hand it off to, I don't know, Retro Studios or something like that.
You know, when it comes to this, though, too, when I say it doesn't feel like a Rare game, there's like key things that Rare was always really known for, too. Like, their music is phenomenal. Almost every Rare game, going back to like the NES, like, even if you like look back at like something like that they made, like Nightmare on Elm Street, like the music is good on it, right? Like, even if it's like a lackluster Rare game, like the music always delivers. And we'll talk about the music later, but there's like 2 tracks that to me, I'm like, okay, this is that Rare element. It's here. And there's no humor in Rare. Rare always kind of has like a little bit of humor to their games, and there's like no humor to this game. And maybe that doesn't fit with the Star Fox, you know, because Star Fox is kind of, even though it's creatures in space, right? That was based off of, I guess, what, like a puppet show that Miyamoto watched as a kid or something like that. That I think that kind of inspired him to like make Star Fox. It seems like it doesn't. It's way serious, right? At least it seems like it's serious, but it's goofy, right? For the original Star Fox, but Rare's not known for being serious, so it's kind of this mix match. You almost have to go either one way or the other, and because it's like they're too afraid to go one way, it doesn't like quite work, right? It's either you gotta be serious in Star Fox, or you gotta be goofy Rare, and it's neither. It's kind of like 20% of each, right?
You're absolutely right, and I think that's why they added the Tricky character to kind of give that balance of like some kind of comedy, but it just comes across as force and cringe with Tricky. Like,
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
The only character that actually felt like a Rare character to me, and it makes the character seem out of place in this game, is the Warp Stone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
100%.
He's got that weird, you know, he's got that very heavy Scottish accent for no reason whatsoever, because nobody else does. You know, his humor is somewhat on point with, you know, Rare humor and everything like that. And it's something we wouldn't see again until Ukulele. Like, it took that long for us to go ahead and see a character like that from some former Rare team. It was kind of weird. Like, and some of the character stuff in this game, like the crystal stuff and the intro to saxophone, I didn't need us to have Horny Fox here, but okay. At the end, they kind of bring that back again, like, your temperature's rising, Fox. I'm like, we didn't need that.
To me, that feels a little bit like Rare, though. That one is like the hint of like Rare that's still showing up. Because, I mean, I agree with you on that. Like, it wasn't needed, but it felt like Rare, like just dabbling, like, you know, throwing that in there, just as like a little goofy thing, just to throw in there, because she's like the furry wet dream, right? She's perfect for any furry fan out there. I have no doubt this is a BS rumor, but there was a rumor that they said to make her more appealing or something like that. Like when Nintendo saw her character design, so they went all the way and made her like, I don't want to say sexy, but they definitely made her like, I don't want to say scantily clad, but kind of.
Well, I mean, compared to her Dinosaur Planet model, it's very night and day. Like,
I would say that as far as another part that does feel rare is the haggling with the merchant. That does kind of feel like rare.
Yeah.
That was fun. I love haggling, and then just the comments they would make. No, that's too low. Okay, I'll sell it to you.
Hey, this much.
Yes,
Okay,
that part was fun.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Yeah, and that's kind of weird too. Like they give you like a haggling system, but it's like
it only works half the time.
I don't even know if it works half the time. But the fact that like what you save, like the most I ever saved was I think like two of the bugs that you collect. I wish there's a way you could maybe make it a trade or like I want to buy this, and then I could ask. Like I am at a convention, right? Like where I'm gonna stack up. I want like this much. I want these 3-4 games, and I'm gonna pay this price, right? Give me something like that. The most I could ever really get was like two coins off or $2 in this ratio, right?
Yeah, same. And it was off of like a map or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
I bought all the cheat tokens and I never used any of them. I have no idea what the cheat tokens did at either in this game. So I know I should probably look this up, but did anyone use a cheat token?
I bought them and it's like, you have to go into the maze. I'm like, all right. So I went into the maze underneath, the dude, and I never figured out what to do with them or where to insert them. I just kind of like walked through the maze and then I stepped on a portal and I was out of the maze. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that did, but it doesn't seem like it did anything. So I didn't bother looking it up. I'm like, this game isn't hard enough for me to need whatever cheat token you're doing. I could just get scarabs anyways. I didn't really care. I was just buying them just to buy them at that point. It's whatever. I was like, maybe it'll let me skip through all these useless mechanics to make me go from section to section that take me longer to get to a place than it does to actually do the mission. But no, we're not that lucky.
It did feel off too. Like when you can tell that this was a different game, you can tell that there's probably a lot of spots that would have fleshed the story out that Crystal was cut out of because they wanted to focus mostly on the Starfox characters. But it was also still confusing on why he didn't use his blasters instead of or at least have them in addition to his staff.
Yeah, they're like, we don't want you to start a war. I'm like, but the war already started, guys. Like, just have them go in there, Indiana Jones this thing, just so pew. All right, dinosaur taken care of. Let's go. Nope. That's one of the things that definitely showed me that this started off as a different game and was shoehorned into something else because obviously Crystal wouldn't have had a blaster, so this is her weapon mechanic. And it shows all throughout like everything about this game's like combat and on-foot missions. But it is what it is. I don't know. There's just certain things about this game that I was somewhat like weirded out about, like where was Falco, and then when spoilers, they do finally appear, they're like, sorry, I was gone for 8 years. I'm like, when did you leave? What is this storyline? It's never been followed up on. It's been 22 years. We still don't know what happened in those 8 years.
Get a follow up a sequel or somewhere they flesh out the story more. No, I'll say this. I kind of like the staff combat, like the ground combat, especially when you learn like there's a combo system to it, and not just press A to mash. Like if you do up, down, A, I think I'm not 100% positive because I couldn't get it to land every time. But he does like this, like Donatello, like staff, like spin attack where you're just kind of like juggling the guys for a minute. I kind of like that a lot, and I kept trying to do that more than anything. But you can go left, right, left, up, down, up, and I'm sure there's more combo systems. But the ones like I always kind of figured was the Donatello spin attack, as I call it, with the staff, and then like the kind of like the roundhouse kick that he does too.
Yeah, those actually aren't like combos. They're not up down. If you just hold back or down on your analog stick and hit the button, it'll do the Donatello spin. If you do it to the side, he does the kick. It's much more simplistic than that. I thought it would be. I tried to figure out like ways to link things together. It doesn't do that. It's just you hold one direction, mash A, and you hold a different direction and mash A, and it's just 2 different combo sets depending on what direction you're holding. It's extremely simple.
Well, that's less creative than I thought.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out like, okay, how do I do like a Zelda flip, or how because like it's supposed to be Zelda like maybe there's a thing where I can strafe to the side and like I can roll to the side, but then it's the exact same static combo animation every single time, and I'm like, okay, is this any more effective than the one where I'm holding forward and it's just the same 3 hits and then half your life is gone? No. Okay, I guess I'll just do that one because the cooler looking one doesn't really help me at all.
The Zelda inspiration definitely threw me off so much in this game too, where I'm trying to play it like a Zelda. Like rolling does not speed up your time running. In fact, it's slower. You're faster off just like running as Fox as you post to roll. Roll is more along the line, I guess, just to like try to put yourself out if you're on fire or you're frozen or something like that. That's really more what roll is kind of used for. I think you can strafe though. I think you can go right, left, and right. If you hold down the Z button, go left and right. But it's nothing like the jump, hop, strafe to the side that's in the Zelda games. It's more along the line, just I think a lock camera behind perspective. How did anyone feel about the Star Fox like missions in this game? By that, you mostly only are Star Fox when you're trying to go to the next area of the game. They'll tell you, in order to break past the force field, you need to collect 1 gold ring. Did anyone think it was close to a Star Fox game? Or a Star Fox feel, if you will?
It definitely was, but unfortunately, that, even including the ending of the game where you're doing that as well, is maybe 12 minutes of the entire runtime of this game. I spent more time going in between Thorntail and Cape Claw than I ever did actually playing a Star Fox game in the Star Fox game.
It was the equivalent of like going to Costco and you go to the samples and it's pretty good, but they're out of stock.
That's a good
point. Like I wanted more of that.
I'll say this: it feels with what little you get, and how, and I'm dogging it a little bit here. I kind of wish I would have saw like Rare had full creative inspiration to do something weird, because knowing what Rare can do, how do you do a Star Fox game? Okay, well, you have a blaster. You can do a barrel. I don't know if you can do a barrel roll. You can do like the spin, right? You can go turbo, and then you can get like bombs, and you can do double lasers, and you might be able to do like a double power double laser. But I think I only got that double power double laser once, and it was so short with those like warp runs to get to the next area. It feels so watered down, right? It feels like, I don't want to say it doesn't feel like a Star Fox game, but it feels like a bad developer doing a take on Nintendo's doing anything. Like there's no inspiration. Like almost like a bootleg NES game where like a bad game where we see what you're trying to do here, but it feels like Star Fox 64 played way better, and I don't know, it's really lacking in my opinion when it comes to the Star Fox elements of the game.
Yeah, like it feels kind of bland, and that's one of the things where you could tell that this was kind of a tack on, because like you said, the lasers, you can upgrade them. Why? I don't know. There's no enemies to fight that need them.
Yeah,
there's nothing that you need to shoot. There's no like big bosses like you'd have in a Star Fox game, like just to proceed to like the next stage or the next act of that stage where you usually have like a big robot that you shoot. That doesn't exist here at all. So if they had something like that where you had to defeat a guy to get to the next warp area, yeah, then it would be more interesting and more engaging. But you get bombs and lasers that you never use until the final mission. And so there's not really a point to it. You just need to fly through the rings and just kind of avoid damage and you're done.
It's more of a like arcade rack 'em up point kind of thing, right? It feels like they were like when they were scratching their head and they committed to being a Star Fox game. They're like, well, what does Star Fox have? And they're like, well, you fly. Okay, well, how do we get to this? How do we mix flying into this 3D world that we kind of did? And they're like, well, I kind of remember this part of the game where it's so Star Fox really is an on rail with the exception of the all range mode missions, is an on rail shooter, right? This is like the most bland recreation. Like they had like a month to do this part. I'm used to Rare being so creative and doing so many like wonderful things with their games. Like you're like, well, even that, like you play like a Banjo-Kazooie 25 plus years later, and you're like, this is phenomenal. Or like even to say what you will, if you're not a fan of GoldenEye, there's a lot of really creative things in that game. They're like the multiplayer is phenomenal in what they did. Is there some elements of weird in this game too? That if you ever played Perfect Dark, right? And I think Perfect Dark is a great example of this, where it's great and serious until the end, and then it just gets off the tracks and weird. And with the dinosaur aliens at the very end of the game, and there's definitely some elements of that in this game here too. Sorry, I just want to.
I understand, because it's like you go through that whole flying section and you get a high score screen, and I'm like, was this left in there by accident? Was this part of the N64 game that you accidentally imported and they said, "Whoops, we forgot to delete that"? What's the point of the high score? Do you get anything for it? Do you even care? Because this was a 30-second segment. No, I don't understand why it's there. And then the weird things with jank, because like, in the ending little video where you're coming back after the final mission, and then even the guys you were just killing routinely are cheering for you. I'm like, oh, what? What is this? I don't understand. What is this game?
I was gonna say, does anyone know how long Rare had to quickly switch this to being Star Fox? Because it feels like everything was forced, and it feels like they didn't have enough time to turn this into what we wanted. So, like as they said, it was just like, here's some free samples scattered out of different parts of Star Fox. We're still gonna like kind of turn it into a Star Fox game. We're gonna take out all the parts that Crystal was supposed to be a part of. And it felt like, I don't know, it just, if time constraint, if like Nintendo wanted to hold on to the property and not let this go anywhere, I believe that they didn't want to, again, do a sequel with another company. They just wanted to hold on to it, retain it. I think they just wanted to get the game done, finished, and out by the time that they probably felt that they lost enough money in Dino Planet, and then now Rare's going to Microsoft. They're like, oh crap, well, we need to get this out because we lost money. We want to make money. Okay, Rare, you need to turn this into a Star Fox game and go, but we need this to be the release date, and this is the time you have. And it feels like Rare just did the best that they could to get it out and then move on to their next adventures.
Yeah, so from what I've read up on this is that at least as of December of 2000, the game was still called Dinosaur Planet. So they, given Nintendo's time frame that they use for Q&A to make sure that there's no bugs, and I didn't run into any bugs in this game. So I will say that at least as far as that go, it is bug-free. Bethesda needs to still learn how to do this.
It runs at 60 frames per second too. So it's a great looking game. It runs great,
But that just shows me that they probably had maybe a year by 2000, from 2000 for beginning of 2001 to the end of 2001 to probably move this over into not only the GameCube from the N64 that it was originally planned to be on, but then also to incorporate the Star Fox elements. Because then you give 4 or 5 months for Q&A, because this game released I want to say
September of 2002.
Yeah. And so they would have been done with it by June, July, because then you have 3 months to go ahead and get it certified and everything like that, and printed discs and everything. Because, day one patches didn't exist back then. So you had to have it ready to go.
Speaking of day one, though, the Microsoft requirement happened the day after this game came out. So it was pretty quick.
Yeah, and I honestly, even if the Microsoft thing had gone through earlier than that, they were still in contract for this game anyway, so they still would have been able to finish it no matter what. So I don't think that there's a real time frame that they had to get this done. And I don't think Microsoft would have been that insane to do that in the first place, because there are plenty of other Rare games that were released on the GBA and stuff, even after Microsoft bought Rare, that Rare developed. So I don't think that there's anything that they were particularly going to be super pig-headed about. But there's just a lot about this game that just show that they had maybe a year, at the most a year and 3 months, to go ahead and transform this entire game to what it is. And that's not a lot of time, especially with a brand new console, because you are switching development cycles. They made the game look great considering it came from N64 to GameCube, and it's one of the better looking GameCube games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they did a really good job in that period of time, but the gameplay itself is where it's lacking, and that's unfortunately like the part that Rare is usually good at. The graphics don't really matter in a Rare game. I can go back and play DK64, and it looks like crap, but I can still enjoy it. This, it looks great. I don't think I'd revisit it again. There's not really a reason for me to play this one more time, especially when it had contemporaries at the time that I find are more enjoyable to play. Like, I'd rather play Ratchet and Clank again, or Jack and Daxter.
So, according to Google's, the game started development as Dinosaur Planet in 1997, and the demo for it was around 2000. But I think that's also then when they made the switch from when Nintendo saw it, and then they told them, let's switch it up and let's make it Star Fox. And apparently that's like December is when they got that information. So December of 2000, and they released it in September. So a year, let's say a year, to figure out how the new console works, develop it, and everything. There's great things in this game too, like some of the unique abilities, like your Zelda-esque, like if you get a hook shot or you get a boomerang, stuff that changed the game. Some of it is pretty neat. You don't use it enough though. I actually thought what are they called, the villains? The Sharp Tooth, or what are they called?
Sharp Claws.
Sharp
Yeah,
Claws.
Sharp Claw.
Like there's a Sharp Claw ability. Like you get a cloak from Slippy. I believe you blast a hole in the wall and he'll drop the cloak on you, and you use it to, like, I think you can pick up heavy things with it, but like use it mostly to unlock doors. If you're wearing it, you won't get attacked by any of the villains. Something that's pretty neat. I thought the rocket boost to get to different areas was kind of neat too. It's a ability, and you can use it to shield if you're like sitting on a platform, so you don't have to take any damage. That's one thing I thought was pretty interesting and different. But for the most part, I thought like what they were doing, like there's some creative elements here, but with maybe like we're talking about like the lack of development time, what got shelved and what could get saved and what could they mix, and how could it still be like a Star Fox game with, let's say, a year of development, right?
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they had spent that year of development not shoehorning Star Fox into it, how much better it could have been.
I thought that having Tricky actually, you can use him in battles too. I think most people forget about that too. Like you can summon his fire flame, if you're getting surrounded by it, and he'll start burning the guys, and they'll get in a little lock, like where they're shaking and everything like that too. I thought that was pretty creative. There's the creative side of Rare that is sadly not enough in this game. I know a lot of people really do like this game. I'm one of them, but I think I'm with you, Stump. Where coming back to this, it's kind of hard, mostly because it feels dated for a game, even in this time period.
Yeah, like if I had played this in 2002, I'm pretty sure I already had my PS2 at the time. But Ratchet and Clank was the year after this, I think 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure the first Jack and Daxter was out, and I had played that already. And this would just feel like a subpar version of that, because I feel like that had all the exploration elements and Zelda-like elements that you're looking for, but it also had the collectathon elements that's typical to a Rare game with the precursor eggs that you collect.
Mm-hmm.
And this game just doesn't really have anything like that. You're not building towards anything aside like maxing out your scarab bag in 20 seconds and then, I don't know, collecting mushrooms to keep feeding Tricky. And there just wasn't a whole lot of reason to like do a lot of exploration and try to find every nook and cranny of every designed level. There's just not enough there to go for.
This game kind of, and I guess like we're going to keep probably badgering this for like maybe it's just the lack of development time though too. It's like you mentioned it, I think earlier, Stump, that I think if you would have probably had boss fights in space, like as like additional things to do in this game, I think that would probably like really pad this game out. Like having a couple of boss fights on the land and a couple of boss fights either in the sky would have been great. I think there's only like 3 real boss fights. They do some creative things too. Like there's the Test of Fear in one of the shrines, essentially you have to you have to balance there's a meter bar, and I think you just use the analog stick, but you can't let it sway one way or the other out of the element. If you fail that, you have to start back at the beginning of that area to get back to do that all over again. That might have been the hardest part for me in the whole game until I figured out what I was doing. I think I was trying to do button mashing, I think, originally, and I was like, no, and then eventually found out it's just the little analog back and forth.
Yeah, for me the hardest one was Dracor, just because one, like, why is there a Doom villain in this game? And then this is one of my other big control style complaints. The targeting and the analog in this game, whenever you're using your blaster, is overly sensitive. I tried it with multiple different controllers. I tried it with an original GameCube controller. I tried it with my Smash Brothers controller from when Wii U released. Because I'm like, it's newer. I tried it with Wavebird. Nope, they all have the same exact problem where, like, getting that precision movement, it's hard. Like, you barely move and it's flying in another direction. So hitting those buttons and switches was always like, all right, I'm going to get near it and then mash A as much as possible, and then maybe I'll hit it. And that particular boss segment is so tied to hitting those things, it was a pain. Like, I didn't die because, like, how do you die in this game? But
I died.
Just was painful.
I'll say I died a couple of times. I'll admit I died a couple of times just because I think maybe it's when I had only the 3-bar segment. Eventually, you get plenty of life in the game too, but there's nothing like compared to a Zelda game. There's like the only way you really get like additional health bars is like beating that area, right? And then they'll give you an additional. It's not a heart, but it kind of is. It's like a little sector with core pieces of heart in it, right?
It was I think in the first area I got close to dying with like having to carry that barrel up against where the barrels are being thrown at you in the volcano temple area. I think it was. No, it was in the ice mines where you're underneath and they have the barrels coming down, and you have to drag that barrel up the ramp, get it on the little thing you set it on. It comes up, and then you have to drag it all the way across like the little fiery things, and then throw it at a door. And then if you miss the door just slightly or throw it slightly too high above, it doesn't work. So you have to do it 2 more times because you're going to fall off the edge 4 times. Yeah, it's it was a nightmare. That was like the worst little bit of gameplay mechanic that I had was carrying that damn barrel.
Yeah, I'll admit I missed the door. Like, I swear, like I hit the door, but I must have been too high above the door, so I didn't get the area I'm supposed to hit to break the door. And that would have been, I think, because you have to watch the area where you're either against a timer because it's going to explode, or it's because the ground is not slippery, but maybe you have to watch like the area so you don't fall off. And then you just get there and you throw and you completely miss. That's always fun.
So far, I've died the most on the bike the bike chases, and just not getting there in time, and then always automatically failing. Or you're going down through the bike, which is kind of fun to do, but it's very sensitive too. So just a little slight touch of something on the side, and you're like stopped, and all of a sudden they're already like way ahead of you. And you're like, well, I'm not going to get caught up to them now, so I fail.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that. What did you think of the racing segments?
So the first one is the only one where you actually have to like outrace the other guys, because that doesn't really happen. And the rest of the game, I kind of just got ahead of them a little bit and then smashed them into a wall until they died. And then I didn't have to worry about anything. That was too easy. But even if I just raced past them and did nothing, because like once you're ahead of them, they can't throw mines down or anything like that, then you're fine. So I don't know. It was kind of there, to say the least. It felt like this was like an homage to Battletoads based off of how the bikes are shaped.
Yep, that's a great point, yeah.
Which, cool. They're homaging their other games, fine. But it didn't have any elements of racing that I would expect in a race. Again, to the contemporaries, you go to like Ratchet and Clank and it's hoverboard racing. This had like nothing compared to that. Like, that is a much better gameplay mechanic.
The second time you have to do it, you have to beat them. You have to kill them. I can't remember. I think it's like in the lava world or something like that, where you have to bump into them. But you're right. You have to be sensitive. You can't hit the walls yourself. You have to basically tap those guys, and you have to do it, I think, 3 times before they pop and explode.
And there's
you can do it in rapid succession too. You can just like tap, 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 and they're gone. There's no like cooldown on how often you can hit them.
Should have made it a little bit like a road rash thing where you smack them as you walk by, but now you have to just bump into them, kind of thing.
If there was going to be like vehicles in this game, like why didn't they have like the tank from Star Fox 64? Like I think that would have been kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But Fox, you can't use weapons against auto war.
Here's another gripe, and I'm dogging the game again. I kind of wish Peppy would give you a little bit, as opposed to just seeing like a globe world map. I kind of wish they would give you a little bit better direction on where to go. They'll tell you what region you're going to go to, but even if you buy all the maps, which I did, because you have plenty of scarabs to buy stuff around here, like the dot is very, very tiny, very, very minimum on the map where you need to go. Like there's one mission where with where the spitter guys, right? Like you're against I want to say the Lightfoots, I think they're called.
Oh yeah, the ones that are an unfortunate stereotype. Yeah.
Yep.
I know what you're talking about.
Yep. The Lightfoots. Yep. So there's a mission where you have to go to the four areas on the map, and I think you gotta smack it or something like that. I can't remember if it was like it's like the totems, right? They have their little totem poles or something. I could not find one of them for the longest time, and then I saw the red dot, but it was so like it's not blinking on my map. I wish it would indicate. I wish there's some better indication of where to go here. Maybe because they knew the game isn't overly that tough, which is another kind of like unrare like game. Rare games at least have a little bit of difficulty to them too. So I was kind of expecting that more with this game, but maybe with the lack of direction, they consider that to be the difficulty.
Yeah, I just wish that the game had created a way to easily travel back to your main hub, your Thorntail village or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember what it's called anymore. I just have PTSD about the song now. Like, because if you go to the other games like your Jack and Daxters and your Ratchet and Clanks, when you finish like a temple or an area, there's usually like a quick travel system that gets you all the way back to the beginning of the level, so you can go onto one of the different pathways. This doesn't do that, and so you end up just spending a lot of time climbing ladders and going back and forth between Cape Claw and the village and things like that, and it just takes so much time. And there's no fast travel system. I wouldn't expect that from this generation of games anyways, because most games didn't have that. But like something where you have like a platform you step on and it just takes you to where you need to go. Or if it's teleporting you out of the Kazuo Palace anyways, why doesn't it teleport you?
They should use that more with they should use that more with the warp guy, the warp zone guy. You already do it like for that. Like, why couldn't you just? I guess maybe how to explain get your ship back in one area, kind of thing.
Or like the gatekeeper's like, oh yeah, I could open this way up for you, and then there's like a big freaking black hole in the sky, and you're like, well, why wasn't that there every time I beat a temple where I could just select to go back to the village? Because it's a load screen regardless. Just give it to me.
Even if it was a consumable like some games used where you can consume, says here, take me back to the hub, and you say you have to just keep using the scarabs because you get plenty anyway, that you just have to just keep buying them. Even if you use that as your way to fast travel, that you as a consumable would have even worked. So rather than backtracking, creating shortcuts, but it's still kind of a lot of time going from one place to the next.
Well, the beach, getting to the beach, you had to go through like a maze and then go underground and then go up. So yeah, like I kind of wish after going there the first time, because you have to back travel there at least 3 or 4 times. It's kind of frustrating. Seems like you're still on the same planet. That should have been like available from the warp zone guy. Seems to use it, and maybe you could have used the coins as like ways to like the cheat codes as opposed to the cheat tokens, which were fairly. So Adam, don't waste your money with the cheat tokens. That would be my little tip for you. And I would like you to keep playing this game only for the fact that I don't think this is a bad game. There's a lot of like very creative, good things in this game. It's just okay. It's just okay.
I agree with you. It's good for like a great experience. Like whether you want to play it again or not, you don't see a reason to. If there was a reason to replay this, it would be like 15 years from now, and just like, you know what, I want to play this game again. It's been a long time, and I might not even try to finish it the next time I play it 15 years from now. But I think it's still at least worth a one-time play through, enjoy it, see it for what it is, think about what it could have been, and it's worth it. It's a decent game. It's a fun game.
Like the Galadin boss fight's pretty good. That's where you fight that big, I want to say like dragon-esque dinosaur kind of thing where he keeps swallowing you and he gets stuck in his stomach. That one's a good fight. But there's not enough of that, right? There's only like 3 boss fights.
It was over way too quick for me too. The Galadin boss fight, like it's fun and interesting, but if you figure out that mechanic really quick, it's also over before you feel like it even started. Because you only get swallowed twice.
I think I did 3. I think it's
3 times.
3.
Yeah.
Same with the T-Rex boss. I thought that was way too easy.
Oh yeah, that's right. The one that's under like the underground one or something like that. So
Yeah.
I'll say this. I had a lot of difficulty with that one. Not so much that I died, but figuring that one out. Because this is gonna probably this is gonna make Adam's life a whole lot easier here too for this boss fight. So there's a T-Rex that you're in a hallway and you're gonna have to shock him. You have to stay on a platform and electrocutes him and stuns him, right? And then what I was doing was I was going back to the corner area, picking up the barrel and throwing at him. And that works for the first couple of times going to do it. But the fence that you electrocute him with gets smaller and smaller. So I kept running back and I would run it and he'd be standing up by the time I get back to throw the barrel at him. What you can do if you're not a giant dummy is just hold the barrel on top of your head, stand on the platform that electrocutes him, and then just walk up and throw the barrel in his face. But if you're a giant dummy like myself, you'll spend yourself like, I don't know, 40 minutes trying to do it. Just running back. Why is he not doing it? Okay, well, I'll go refill my health. Okay, well, there's more magic right there. Okay, cool. And then you just keep repeating the same pattern over and over and over again until you realize that you can just have the barrel on top of your head, stand them, and then just walk up and throw the barrel in his face.
I've seen like in reviews, whenever I was watching the reviews on this game at one point, I do remember the T-Rex in that review that I've watched. And I remember seeing them like kind of sort of doing part of that. And I remember them actually standing on that thing. So I kind of know how to beat that boss. And they were actually not even throwing it at him. They were just letting him walk, like get electrocuted. And they were just taking the explosion, doing damage to Fox. Then they would go refill their health. They didn't even bother throwing it. They just held it until it exploded, hurt Fox, hurt the dinosaur, then they would go back, fill up their health, and they just keep doing it.
There was a couple of like platforming like that with the barrels where like you have to throw the barrel and it'll hover across to the next side. But I got away with just holding on top of my head, jumping on the platform, and it would just automatically land perfectly on the other side. I know there's a couple areas I think like that where I was throwing it and it would hit a wall. For some reason, like it was perfectly fine if you threw it on the like hovering areas, right? Like the little hover platforms. You know, it was it just, I don't want to say it didn't make sense, but I'm like, oh, like the fear of the barrel exploding. I guess my idea was like, is this gonna work? And you're like, oh, I guess it's perfectly fine when an air platform touches it, but not anything else.
The barrels were probably one of my least favorite things in this game, just in general. Like, it just seemed like it was an overused mechanic that was finicky at best.
Yeah, I hated the one where you had to go up this spiral like ramp because like the camera's bad, and I don't know. I just kept getting hit and had to go all the way back to get a new barrel and try it again.
Yeah, that's the one I complained about earlier. That one sucks.
Yeah.
I think one of the ones that sucks too, as far as with gameplay mechanics, is the one where you have to free the mammoth and he has to suck into things. So like they would send out 4 guys at you, but the second you kill those 4 guys, there's like 4 more, and you have to try to get him to suck into things so he can free him from the ice. That one was kind of
whack the tree first, right?
Yeah, and that was annoying because they would go and then try to like break up those little dust things or whatever. They would like break those up. And then you have to keep going back and hitting them. But like every time you killed one of them, they were automatically another one there. So it was just like constant repeating. That was a little annoying more than anything.
I'll admit that took me a minute to figure that out too, because all of a sudden I realized I'm like, these guys are just regenerating, because I was fighting them all and they just kept. I think that's the thing is I didn't realize I had to try to free this guy. I thought I'd kill off all these waves of Sharp Claw, but no, you need to wave off what you can. I recommend using Tricky if you can for the battle of that part. Well, you can So he'll like stun them so you can at least run and throw the barrel at the mammoth that's stuck in the ice.
Oh, I didn't. You couldn't pick up the dust things. He had to suck them in with his trunk. It was one.
I thought you had to get them out of the tree, right? First.
Yeah, you get like
Yeah.
the thorny like tumbleweed things out of the tree, and then he sucks them in with his trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And he originally said something when you first meet him that Tricky can help you. I never figured out how the hell Tricky helps me with this, but I think he can kind of like hit them towards his direction. But it's AI based, and AI is not great yet at this point. Yeah, because heck, half the time they just rolled down the hill and they didn't actually go up to the mammoth. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep killing all these guys over and over again, hitting the tree when I can. And 8 minutes later, he was free, and I'm like, that was stupid.
I was sitting there spending a lot of time just trying to pick up the things that carry him. I thought I had to actually pick up the dust things and take it to him. And I wasn't realizing that he was actually sucking them in, but then they would get broken up from the enemies anyway, because I'm fighting like one or two of them, and then the other two are just destroying the dust things from getting to him.
I think I finally realized why I was trying to relate with the weirdness of Perfect Dark at the end with the dinosaurs. The Krazoa. The whole Krazoa thing throughout the whole game, they just like felt weird and off. Like you get these statuesque figures. It's just like a weird mask face. You have to collect their spirits, and you have to keep implementing. That's like, so Crystal gets kidnapped after the beginning opening of this game by General Scales, who's this T-Rex with 2 hooks for hands. Basically, you have to get these 4 stones and 4 spirits to free her. But the whole like Krazoa spirits just like looks off and weird to me. Just like it doesn't belong in this game. It's just a weird feel. And eventually I remember like when it came at the end that, and this could be a little bit of spoiler for Adam right here because I'm gonna spoil it. When the Krazoa god comes to life after all the spirits have been freed and whatnot, I'm like, this is really turning into a little bit of that Perfect Dark. Go to a dinosaur planet. Maybe they're tied together, right? Where you have to kill dinosaurs. But eventually reveals on the backside of that Krazoa helmet, it's Andros, the Deke in the game. You don't even fight General Scales. Like you set up the fight, the big fight, like builds up this whole game, and the whole giant Deke is that it's Andros.
And he was playing him for a fool.
Yeah.
It's fucking.
There's a really funny thing though, like in the fight with Scales, the quote unquote fight, I should say. If you don't do anything, he just goes up to you and he can't hit you at all.
Yep.
So,
yep, you'll just keep going back and forth, but until you implement with like you swing the staff at him, then it triggers the cutscene fight.
Yeah, I will say though, Andros looks kind of badass in this game,
and it's very much your normal Andros fight from. Well, actually, I would say 64 probably went a little bit further with like the flying eyeballs in the brain. For the most part, it's your normal Andros fight. Well, I shouldn't say that, DK, because you have to fight the backside of his head too. I'll say I completely forgot about Andros being a thing until the very end of this game. I really did. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He's Star Fox, big bad guy. I also thought after the beginning part of this game that Crystal was gonna be way more involved in the game. Like it was maybe they'd do more missions with her, or like you free her and then you do missions with like her on the pterodactyl, but never really happened.
Yeah. I wonder what her role would have been in Dinosaur Planet instead of just being trapped in a cage the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
I think Scales seemed like he could have been a pretty cool villain, especially when at the beginning of the game, when you see how ruthless he kind of is, when he just basically grabs Crystal, drags her across the thing, and just throws her over. Like he didn't care. He's just like, he seemed like he was going to be ruthless.
Did anyone, this is a little dumb mechanic, but did anyone change Tricky's colors?
No.
So you can, Tricky's got like, I think 10 different colors you can change him to. And the way you do this is you get a ball. And if you play fetch with him like 10 times, he gets excited and he changes his colors.
I bought the ball.
Well,
I bought it.
I think if you do it a few times, he consumes less mushrooms to do what he needs to do. So like to be full hungry, he only will take like, as opposed to eating, was it 5? I think he's got a max. Like I think he'll only eat like 2. Granted, there's so many mushrooms in this game too. It's not really that big of a deal, but yeah, there's a color palette switch for Tricky. So if you like him in a certain color, you can change him to match the environment or whatever. I only did it one time, and I was like, "Oh, that's neat," and then I stopped.
And if you don't like him, you can actually hit him.
Yes, and
But
I think if you
don't hit him when he has the fire ability, because he can hurt you back.
Really, I didn't realize that. I read yesterday though, as I was putting the overview together, that the reason why it's got a teen rating is because there is, if you hit Tricky enough, he'll drop blood, and that's what gives the game the teen rating.
But
I would
It
assume
wasn't the
saxophone scenes
whole
did that.
crystal
Yeah.
furry thing.
Not the
Yeah.
sexy saxophone or
Oh, we didn't even mention this too. I thought was kind of cool. Is I like when games do this. Is I like, especially when what made me think of it was collecting the mushrooms because they're asleep at night. Is it has a day-night cycle.
I mean, it
that
doesn't do anything, but it's there.
No, but I think that was kind of cool. That
it's a
I
nice
like when
attention to
games do
detail, I
that.
guess.
I'll say the worst enemies in this whole game too are those like little bat dinosaur things or something like that, like laugh as they chase you or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can't hit them until they accidentally hit you, unless you shoot them down. Yeah.
By far and away the worst. And like I said, there's a lot of some more Zelda-esque things, like with the bats or something like that, like very keys-esque, where they'll, there's like the flyer keys and there's some snow ice keys that'll freeze you and whatnot. But like those, by far and away, those little bat-like laughing dinosaur things are the worst in this game.
And it may seem like we're dogging on this game, and rightfully so in a lot of places, but this game had a lot of potential. It's just that we've played games that this is based off of, or games that are contemporaries like it. Like I was mentioning, Jak and Daxter released 9 months before this did, because it released in 2001, and it's by and far a better version of what this is trying to be. It's not that the game is bad. Like, I don't want anybody to listen to this like they listen to our Black Flag review and be like, "Oh man, this game sounds like crap." No, it's not bad in any ways. It's just we come to expect something from Nintendo, and it just definitely didn't hit the mark on it. Absolutely. And what's kind of sad is that 3-minute Andross fight is the last Andross fight canonically in the timeline of Star Fox that we've had. There isn't one in Assault because it's his nephew, the one that's on Star Wolf, takes over. And then Zero is just a remake of 64, which is just a remake of Star Fox in the Super Nintendo. So realistically, we just have not got another Andross fight since this one. He hasn't been a character again. That's a long time to have your main series villain kind of out of commission. But again, they kind of don't really make Star Fox games anymore.
Nintendo's not been able to sniff or figure out Star Fox. Like they have a few franchises like that where they just don't know what to do. And I almost wonder if they're scared to hand it off to like another franchise to do it. Like they'll hand them off to put them in other games, but they want to make it, but they just cannot figure out the code again. Like this is they have their Zelda department, they have their Mario department. Hell, Metroid gets more love and whatnot, but like F-Zero, Star Fox, they just can't figure it out.
They should give it to the team that did Starlink. I mean, I don't know if anyone here has played Starlink on the Switch, but it has a whole its own story with Fox and Wolf, and it was actually done well. And I'm just like, this could have been a really cool Star Fox game if this is what it was.
With Ubisoft potentially getting bought out right now, I don't think that Nintendo's going to be handing off any of their franchises to a developer with an uncertain future at the moment, which is probably why we're not going to get another Rabbids game, a Mario and Rabbids. We're probably not going to get another game developed by Ubisoft for a while. I could see them going back to Namco, like they did with Star Fox Assault, because it was straight up just an arcade game. That's exactly what it needed to be.
But Zero is made by Platinum, and they couldn't even figure it out either. But I think that would also might have been some Nintendo tinkering around with that one too.
Yeah, because I think forcing the gamepad to be your aiming thing was the dumbest idea that they could have had. Because I'm just sitting there using the sticks to rotate my view while using the pad to aim and shoot. That'll be for a different time. We will get to Star Fox Zero on this channel, I'm sure. I was one of the idiots that pre-ordered it and got like the one that came with Star Fox Zero and Guard and everything like that. And I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. And then I hated it. But I don't know. They just need to get it off to somebody who really either just wants to remake Star Fox again for the third time, because 64 and Zero are again remakes. But I think something like that would work. Just do a little remake, make it like $20 or $30.
I think also with Zero, I think Nintendo started developing that one, and then they handed it off to Platinum and said, "Okay, now do some stuff with this." Because I remember the E3 coverage where they said like the developers got pulled, like wherever the reviewers all got pulled aside behind curtains to see what Star Fox was being made, and Miyamoto was showing off what they were cooking up with. And then I think I heard like 2 years later that Platinum was making the game, and I was like, "Oh, cool." So it seems like Nintendo started making it, and then they gave it to them.
From what I understand, it was EPD that mainly made the game. Platinum just did like the finishing touches, and they made Guard, the tower defense thing. Mm-hmm. What'd you guys think of Tricky talking like he's a character in Seinfeld?
I've never seen Seinfeld, so I don't know.
He just gives me like that Larry David vibe. Like he has that accent going on. Like, Fox, what's going on?
I wouldn't say if it was more along the line of that. I still was more along the line of I'm hungry and we have to go save my dad. Like that.
Yeah, he's kind of. I don't know if you guys watch anime, but he's kind of like that a Fox character in Inuyasha that just kind of pals around every now and then.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they try to make him like that cute companion, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean they try to make him like the side character that Link has, like Minda and Twilight Princess or Navi, or someone annoying like Fee. He comes off more like Fee, where he's just the worst in the pits. The only thing about it is he doesn't tell you to change your battery every 5 minutes in your control.
I just think of the Land Before Time cartoon movie. Like whenever every time he talks, I just like see him in like the Land Before Time as a character.
A lot of these names that they have for their dinosaurs are very much Land Before Time. Like Littlefoot and
Cloud Runner.
Yeah, like their names are Cloud Runner, Sharp Claw. Like I kind of remember like Sharptooth. Is it like Sharptooth is the T-Rex in that? Yeah. So a lot of the names are very much like that for every dinosaur race that they have. Very much they Land Before Time name. Now that you mentioned that, yeah.
I loved in this game, like whenever I'm doing like a really more platformy section or something that I have to like really think about to be able to get through, Tricky just appears right behind you. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? Yeah, I want to see the replay of you getting through this puzzle.
You didn't have to worry about him like getting lost or anything like that, or having to go back from. So props to them for him just like being there. If you had to go back to because he was pinned against the wall, that would make this game like awful.
Like, it would have been a 3 out of 10. Yeah.
I'll give credit to Tricky though. Like for how like heavy he might be, he's a pretty fast swimmer. And it's like he'll catch up to you.
Yeah, pedals like a dog too. So.
Oh, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like on Fox himself? Because I haven't seen a lot of dialogue and cutscenes with Fox outside of like, Starlink and just bits and pieces. To me, it seems like he was more standoffish. Like he's like, whatever, just whatever. I don't care. Like the entire time, every time he's talking about stuff, he just seems like he just didn't care.
Where's my money?
Yeah, the only thing he cared about was money and Crystal.
Yeah.
off of like visuals alone, because obviously he hadn't even met her yet. Fox, but like we don't really get a whole lot of Fox in 64, which would have been the game before this one. It's just pretty much him talking on the little radio to people back and just being kind of sarcastic and getting tricked by Andros about his dad, and then like being like, "Oh well, screw you! I'll kill you, Andros, for pretending to be my dad and killing my dad, probably." So there's not really a whole lot of Fox before this game to really base a character off of. So him kind of being a snarky mercenary, it works. It's fine.
It's fine. I'll say this though. I think the fact that it's just like you and Tricky for the most part. I mean, there's some other characters, but what's already been established with 64 in the cast not being as involved, I think hurts the game a little bit. It's Star Fox 64 is always quoted still to this day with do a somersault, try or try a somersault, do a barrel roll, stuff like that. Like, geez, I've been saved by Fox, how swell. It's missing stuff like that. Even this is one of the fun facts of the game, there's no Star Wolf in this game. This is like the only Star Fox game that has no Star Wolf in it. Like those little side bosses like Pigma and Star Wolf and the Great Leon or something like that. Like those would have been great little elements of this game. And I know we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of it like having to do with switching this game to a Star Fox game and making it in a year probably is the reason for that.
Yeah, and honestly, having them in this game might have been bad anyways, just because those characters don't feel like they belong.
Yeah, those are mercenaries. They're hired mercenaries, right? So
exactly. So why would they have come for this distress signal? And even if they were hired mercenaries, if they were there, because one of them is Andross's nephew, it would have just given away the twist at the end even earlier, because like why would they be helping the dinosaurs unless there was something to do with Andross? Like who would be paying them? Like if they're not going to take scarabs, what other currency do these dinosaur guys have?
I guess so. The only thing about it is like just having his cast more involved would have been. Then again, I'm also thinking of modern day gaming compared to a game that came out 23 years ago. So it's what I'm saying. But by that I mean like they are involved in the game, but they're very minimally involved in the game. Like you'll get like, hey, check out Peppy's map, and then you'll get like a little bit. You get more from General Pepper than you probably do anyone else in the Star Fox gang.
Well, like we've been saying this whole time, this is like a Zelda-like, right? Zelda had already done this on the 64, where they do incorporate different characters, because Wind Waker wasn't out yet when this came out. I don't believe it was. That was what, 2003, 2004. Yeah. So they didn't have a chance to show what they could do on the GameCube with Zelda at this point. But even like 2 years before, when Majora's Mask came out in 2000, I think it was. They had already done all this. They had incorporated all their irregular, side characters that are typically in a Zelda game. You didn't miss anything there. Like some people don't like that game for certain mechanics, but like there are all the things that you think, oh, this is a Zelda game, are present in Majora's Mask. That's only like the 4th mainline game in the series at that point. Well, no, 5th mainline game in the Zelda series, and this is the 3rd one in the Star Fox, and they already went off the rails of not including their main cast.
I'm gonna bring back the ship elements too. There was a lock-on feature in Star Fox 64 where you would hold down A button and it would charge up a shot and like you home in on the shot, right? There's none of that in this game, and maybe because the missions are so short, you probably don't need it. But I feel like it was missing.
I tried to do it with the Fire Blaster when I first originally got it, because I thought that's where that mechanic would come in, and it just didn't. Which is weird, because they make you do that mechanic later on with the rocket boost with it. You had to hold it down for it to boost, even though you can't use it otherwise. So why would you ever make me hold it down? Whatever. Yeah. Maybe it's just to make sure you don't accidentally use it. It kind of was sad that I wasn't able to charge it up and like take out an enemy from afar, because there are options for you later on where you can see like a sharp claw in like the distance, and you can just hit them with your blaster until they go away. Like you can do that. But having it be more, I don't know, stealth inspired, I guess, where if you were able to charge it up and just take them out in one hit and then walk forward, that probably would have been a cool idea. But, a way to incorporate something that we knew from the R-Wing into the standard gameplay here. But, oh well.
I know I mentioned this earlier, and I want to touch on the music here. This is one of the things I dogged before is like for a rare game, almost every area in a rare game's got like a memorable track. This one, I think, only has 2. And then the Star Fox elements, you'll hear the same classic Star Fox tunes. Like before you load into a mission, the classic Star Fox one you get from 64. But the rare elements of every elemental world, I think a lot of them are just like ambiance in this game, which is very unrare. Like I can think of 2 tunes, though, that I thought were pretty catchy and reminded me that, yeah, this is a rare game. And one was Thorntail Hollow which is like the first opening game. You don't like it, Stumptown. I liked it.
No, I feel like I'm gonna have nightmares about hearing that song and having to walk around that village for like the next year.
No, not me. I was rolling and having a good old time in that area because of that tune. But Cape Claw, I think, was the other area that I thought had like a track that sounded like it belonged in a rare video game. I don't know. Did anyone else feel the same exact way? Did they have a tune that you liked, or?
I like the small song that you get when you board on the R-Wing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, not really. Like, it was just atmospheric for me. Like, it was fine. Like, I do like the village music. I thought the music for like in the bike chases that you had was kind of cool. It kind of gave me a Star Wars vibe as I was chasing that music as you were chasing them down. But nothing really fully stood out for me.
Nothing really stood out in a rare type way for me about music in this game. Like, you mentioned Cape Cod, that's probably the closest one that I got that kind of vibe from. But even then, it's more so like kind of hub world vibe rather than like specific level vibe, which is fine. Like, I know that this game is a different game. If you play Star Fox 64, not every track on that is memorable, or even original Star Fox. Like, you know, Venom's memorable, Corneria's memorable, but the other ones are kind of hit or miss. So I didn't expect everything on this to hit either, just because Star Fox music has never been a complete album worth of bangers anyways. It's more so you get the singles album and listen to 3 things. And that's kind of how this feels too. So it's fine. It's serviceable. You know, Adam had mentioned the bike racing segments. Yeah, absolutely. And then JChip, you had mentioned like the R-Wing segments. Yeah, those were great because they felt more in tune with like Star Fox's other music, and I feel like those were great. But the rest of them, it was just kind of there, or there was just no music in general, really. Like when you're going in between different areas and through like the tunnels or anything, it's just silent.
Yeah,
There's
or ambience,
nothing.
or you hear like water dripping or something.
Yeah, and I'm like, do I need this? Can I have something? Like, this doesn't feel like Nintendo to just leave it with nothing.
Yeah. Or rare for that matter. It just seems that way. I 100% agree with you.
I got one question for you guys.
Yeah,
what was your favorite like planet to explore in this game? Because I thought all of them were really cool in their own way. I like the temple one. That's more Japanese inspired. It's very short and compact, but I really liked it a lot because I thought the puzzles were more fun than that.
Yeah,
compared
I
to
agree
others.
with you. That's a good one. That's where it's also got the giant T-Rexes too walking around, or the red eyes as they call them in this game.
Yeah.
So I was like terrified to run around, and I thought I was gonna get like my ass handed to me by those guys, but they only really just do like I think like a quarter of damage to your heart if they bite you. But still, no, like it was a great area to visit. I would say I think Cape Claw, even though it's on the same area, it's not, you know, a different part where you have the bridge to. I think Cape Claw was probably my favorite area to visit that wasn't like part of the home base area.
I'm kind of in the same boat as JChip. I really liked like that whole temple area where you find I think we're talking about the same one where you find Tricky's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tricky's dad's there.
Yeah. I thought it was more Aztec inspired because it has like those Aztec pyramids, but that's just me. But yeah,
you have to get those two, the gold tooth and the silver tooth.
The moon and the sunstones. And I'm like, are we evolving a Pokemon? But it's fine. You know, that whole area was a lot of fun to go into, and I felt like design wise, it was probably like the more creatively designed one. I would say also, Dragon Rock also felt very much like something from like the original development cycle for Dinosaur Planet. Not just because the textures look like crap compared to the other areas, because they definitely do, but it just feels like more like a dinosaur like wasteland, like where you'd find all these kind of creatures. So I kind of liked seeing something that looked like it was part of that original development. But the flying segment on it with the on rails and shooting all the things coming at you and hitting those towers is kind of stupid. I don't like that.
Where was the giant T-Rex located again? Do you remember?
That's the temple one.
That's the temple one. Okay, yeah, that was. I mean, I still think that was like a really creative setup for a boss fight too. Maybe more evil dinosaurs like that, as opposed to like I get it too. The sharp claws are also like your Goombas, if you will, not your Goombas, your goblins and whatnot of the game. But I don't know, like that's like I don't want to say it's terrifying, but like that's a great like oh shit kind of moment. Like here we go, here's a great boss fight.
Yeah, that's how kind of I felt with the setup to Drakor on Dragon Rock, because it's like, oh, they're experimenting on themselves and giving themselves more power, and then you meet this guy who's like a super powered up Sharpclaw that looks like, you know, a cyber demon from Doom, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this game is going in that direction, and then it doesn't. It's just this one guy, but like the setup to that boss, because you're hearing about it from like the Brachiosaurus looking guy. You hear about like that they're doing these experiments and everything. It kind of sets up that boss fight really, really well. And, you know, then it just kind of goes nowhere with that. You kind of like, oh, I defeated him. I guess I stopped their plans.
You had mentioned before about how you thought it was weird with the dinosaurs that you were killing all game were also there cheering for you. It kind of makes me thinking you talking about them being like the henchmen or like your goblins per se, is that could potentially be the fact that they just only follow who's in the most power. Maybe they followed Scales out of fear, but now he's gone, that they just follow whoever is the next leader in, and it doesn't matter.
There was also this weird storyline with the Sharp Claws too. If you pay attention to what people are talking about, like, oh, they didn't even originate from this planet. They came on an asteroid from a different planet. And I'm like, why?
It's rare.
What, like, why does that have to be a thing? Like, they could have just been on the planet the whole time. Because they end up, again, they mention that, and it goes nowhere.
Yep.
That's a whole thing that just is, oh, here's this offhand lore piece.
If you liked elements of this game, do you have any game recommendations for something that'd be similar to this?
I mean, Zelda would be the obvious pick, and Jak and Daxter. But if you haven't played a game called Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, I would recommend that game if you liked this one, because it has the same vibes to it.
That's probably from the same generation, right?
Yeah, PS2, GameCube, Xbox. There's even a Switch remaster too if you want to play on Switch.
Cool. Stump, what do you got for recommendations here?
I won't repeat myself and say Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank again. So something a little bit different, kind of in the same vein as JChip. Blinks the Time Sweeper is another one that I would throw out there. It's a Xbox original Xbox game. I don't think it got forwarded to the new generation. I don't know if you can play it on an Xbox Series X or not. I doubt it. But that's one to check out. And if you're really into like this kind of like game and want to see it throughput and you just want something modern, you only have a modern system, just get the newest Ratchet and Clank. Just get Rift Apart. Because I feel like that's going to give you a two protagonist storyline like this could have been with, you know, Crystal and Fox, and kind of give you like two different pathways to meet the same point with a consistent story and throughput.
Adam?
Yeah, so if you're looking for something because you really liked that, like those free samples with the spaceship parts of Starfox Adventures, I had mentioned Starlink on the Switch, because that's the only way you're going to be able to incorporate actually Star Fox himself with a cool storyline. It's not like a long storyline with him, and then it switches back to the main story of Starlink, which is still cool that he was incorporated in the first place. Now, if you're looking for something more, you can go kind of along the lines as what the other two were saying is, yeah, Ratchet and Clank is an obvious pick. You could start any game in that franchise. There are fantastic games. I've played through pretty much most of them. But then I could also go, if you want to stick with Rare, Cameo on the 360. I mean, it kind of sort of takes some elements from Starfox Adventures. You can kind of see what Rare could do a little bit differently, but it has some elements in Cameo.
Does it have furry elements?
I mean, you could transform into other creatures and stuff. So I mean, kind of. Yeah. It came out on the 360. It's part of the Rare collection. So if you have the Rare collection, it's in there.
It's hard to say something we haven't probably played as a Cartridge Club game, right? Because I think there are other games that both Nintendo and Rare have done better. like if you want the true Star Fox experience, play 64. It's the best one. It's the one they keep coming back to, and it's hard not to say Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask or something like that, because they did things better, just like the lock-in features better. You know, the combat's better, and like I said, it's hard for me because I can't say I've played more of the 3D platformers like you guys recommended. So those are probably good recommendations for me. This was a genre of mine that I wish come back, and it's kind of coming back more now with like you see games like Hat in Time and a few other, like you guys mentioned, like I think Ukulele, but that's I don't know how good Ukulele's 3D platformer game is. I know it got remastered, I think, for PS5, where I think they tried to correct some of their issues that were released with that original generation. So it's hard for me to recommend anything else besides what I've played in the past. So I guess I gotta go with that.
Yeah, Ukulele is a lot more in the vein of Banjo-Kazooie, so it's a collectathon. So it's a little bit different than this game in that aspect, because it doesn't have like the collect items and then turn items in sort of situation. So if you like rare games, just play Ukulele. You'll enjoy it. That's why I backed it on Kickstarter when it was announced. But I wouldn't say that that's like kind of in the same vein as this game, per se, just because of the way that it's designed is just a little bit different.
Can I ask which ukulele you're either? Because I have them both. They're on my shelf. I've never played either. And
Impossible Lair, I akin more to like a Donkey Kong Country game than I do a rare collectathon. Because Ukulele Standard is like a 3D platformer. Impossible Lair is not. It's a 2.5D. Another game that, you know, a lot of people love, even though it's also probably equally as jank that could fit into this, is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Like, there's a lot of jank in that game, but it's fun, and it has kind of similar elements to this one.
I'd like to reiterate, January's game of the month will be Shining Force. If you've played along or just want to discuss the game with us, make sure to let us know by using the hashtag Cartridge Club on whatever social media platform you frequent. For those that want to get a head start on February's game of the month, we'll be playing BioShock Infinite. And with March being around the corner, March Madness is back. And this year, it'll be about the NES. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, please reach out to us. We're always looking forward to having new community members on to talk about the games they love. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. But I want to give a thanks to our guests who helped me out and helped with this episode. So, JChip, where can we find you online?
You can find me on YouTube at JChipShow. I'm also on Blue Skies. I'm most active in the Discord if you want to talk, but you can find me there.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Atomic, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, well, now X, and Instagram. I am AtomicBomb1980 on all platforms.
Thanks for being here. And Stump, where can we find you online?
You can find me in the Discord here for Cartridge Club most of the time. I do finally have a Blue Sky account as well, but
Ooh.
I rarely use it. Apparently, I've had it for a year and I didn't know. But yeah, what happens?
As for myself, you can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me in the Cartridge Club Discord with the handle with Rocket Sauce. But that being said, that's the show, everybody. See you night.